We saw how he riled them up with corrosive lies and violent rhetoric, so much so that they were ready and eager for their most dangerous mission, invalidating the will of the people to keep Donald Trump in office. But we must remember that this was not the first time Donald Trump had inflamed and incited a mob. Trump knew that his incitement would result in violence, not only because of the thousands of violent messages that were posted all over the forums and the widespread news of preparations for violence among extremist groups and his communications on Twitter with the insurrectionists themselves.
Everybody's been watching the impeachment hearing a second time to see what did this amount to. What is this all about? Very passionate. The House impeachment managers really make a very personal, passionate argument. I don't know about the legal one. Remain to be seen if the Republican Party is really gonna come to their senses and realize that there are a lot of damage been done by President Trump, and how would they separate themselves from this racist nationalist? I'm going to be talking to Professor David Schultz. He's a professor of political science. We have him on the show a few times at Hamline University. And David Schultz.
Hi, how you doing?
Very good. How are you?
A little sore.
What happened? I don't see your sore head.
Oh, hold on a second. Let me get my video here too.
Good idea.
So I play a lot of tennis, and this was a completely freak accident. I got hit back of the head really bad with a tennis ball and a minor concussion.
And whoever was playing with you is still your friend.
Well, this was the freaky part about it, is that I was done playing. I was on an opposite court picking up the tennis balls, and all of a sudden something just, so I was bent over. And all of a sudden, something just came down and hit me on the back of the head. And somebody on the other court mishit the ball. We can't figure out how it happened. It ricocheted off of the ceiling and came down and hit me. It looks like something out of a horrible, bad movie or something like that.
So it wasn't intentionally?
It wasn't intentional at all. It was like, I'm trying to think. We're talking about something in the Powerball range. Like the chances of me being in that spot, et cetera, like that. So very freaky, but no. So it's clearing up. 2 days ago it was really awful. Today it's not too bad.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much for
no problem at all
doing this for us, and we've been missing you. And I know this is a lot of things happening, and I think your concussion from the impeachment trial, not from the tennis court.
That's right.
So stop watching that.
That's right. Well, perhaps American politics either needs a good swift kick in the butt or a kick in the head. I don't know which it is.
Yeah, it's a bad sport anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, okay, but sport is it's a game, but everybody should know the rules.
Right.
And it seems like in politics the rules keep shifting and changing. So here is the Republican Party that they pride themselves being constitutionalist and going to protect the country, a patriotic constitution. Now they are taking a very different approach to what this impeachment is all about. So we survived the first impeachment, and thanks God it was over. And now we have, for the first time, a president been impeached for the second time. So.
Right.
Are we going to do a second nothing because the first was nothing? The second one is going to be another nothing? Or how's it different than the first one?
Okay. I think there's a couple of differences. One, of course, you're right. Donald Trump will be the first president impeached twice in American history, and he'll be the first president impeached and have a trial after he's been president of the United States. So he gets to have a double here. But at the end of the day, I'm going to argue this is mostly a show trial. in the sense that we know what the verdict is going to be at this point. That in order to convict somebody in the Senate, you need to have 2/3 or 67 votes for a conviction. If all the Democrats vote for conviction, that's 50. They need 17 Republicans. It's not going to happen. So what we really have here is on both sides, both the Democrats and the Republicans, a show trial in different ways. For the Republicans, they're going through the facade of impartiality, going through the facade of saying, yeah, we haven't prejudged this, but at the end, we're not going to find him guilty. And for the Democrats going into this, they know they're not going to get a conviction. And they are bringing it maybe because they're mad, maybe because there's a good reason, maybe because we want to become another country that puts ex leaders on trial. But I think a lot of it is just about what? It is about appeasing the base, kind of, proverbially throwing him red meat so that the base gets hot and bothered. Upshot, you know what this trial really is? The opening salvo for the 2022 congressional elections.
And this is usually the case. The first one, I think, also we know we're not going to get conviction, but everybody was showcasing his, electability to his base.
Right.
But the thing is, when you look at those, and I'm not going to say I watch it closely. I mean, I can't. We have, since the pandemic and COVID and the lockdown, I'm very fragile now to nonsense
Right.
and bullshit. So what I'm saying is, it was more of an emotional argument, not a legal one. And everybody's talking about how they felt, how the things, a threat, family. Did the Democrats make a good legal argument?
Well, you're right. It's primarily emotional, and they were really going for not the hearts, but the minds of the American public. Again, if they thought they were going to change Republicans' minds either through heart and soul or heart and minds, it wasn't going to happen. Now, I think the best legal argument that the Democrats have, but it got sort of buried here, is what's called the January president. And this is exactly what happened here. That if you argue that you can't try a president after they've left office, then we pretty much have left wide open presidents in their final 2 months in office or in their second term. But especially in their final 2 months in office, pretty much free to do whatever they want. So they said we need to do this for checks and balances to limit excesses of presidential power. That's a good argument, and I think also the argument of saying that this is not a criminal trial. And impeachments are what, really political trials more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
That if somebody encourages people to go storm the Capitol, that's an impeachable offense. I think those are not bad arguments, but they certainly weren't the center stage of what they were trying to do. The fact that they opened up with, what was it, like an 18-minute video clip, and then they showed us additional video that we hadn't seen before. It almost sounds like a television ad. Act now, and we'll show you, additional, footage or something like that. No, this was just meant to get to people's gut, to their heart, and to get them really angry about the situation, especially their base.
When this guy, not just on the 6, for almost for 4 years, he's been inciting and spouting lies, and through that lies, and that's what got his base excited and motivated and storm the Capitol. So, so can we impeach somebody or a politician for lying or spouting lying?
If we were going to impeach politicians for lying, we would probably have no politicians in the United States or in the rest of the world, which may be good. I don't know. But yes, we know he's lied. We know he's consistently lied. What some estimates are, what the Washington Post was saying, 20,000 lies or something like that in 4 years, whatever it is. The question really becomes at this point, when you take all those lies together and look at what his base wound up doing that day, can you attribute the actions to him? In a court of law, it would be very difficult because where his speech is exactly on the edge between what's considered to be First Amendment free speech versus a true threat. And that would have made it, if it was a criminal trial on that issue there, reasonable minds could reach different views on it. But the question is here, to what extent do we hold a sitting president responsible for perhaps telling him, go attack the legislative branch? And depending on how you interpret those words, you get some very different meanings. I was going to say, I know you taught business classes for a while, as I did. You know, when a business leader, let's say of, I don't know, of Coke or Pepsi says, let's go out there and beat up the opposition. Now, are they really saying beat up the opposition? You know what they're saying.
Physically.
Yeah, it's cheering, it's motivating people on. So it becomes a tough call here.
Well, there was a precedent there, and I think that's what the Democrats are using when there was a trial against a bunch of Ku Klux Klan
Yes.
because they were inciting some people, but they said they were protected by the First Amendment because they
Right.
were not specifically certain people to commit certain violence against certain other people. But wasn't the First Amendment made to protect individual from the government, not the other way around?
Yes,
And
exactly correct. Yeah, is that the whole idea was that the government, it's not supposed to be censoring people. Now, in other countries, but this is not the United States, in other countries, free speech clauses might extend to, let's say, protecting you against private speech, but that's not the United States. Here, it's supposed to be to prevent the government from censoring you, from coming in and clamping down and saying that you can't say this. So you're absolutely right. The other thing I just want to briefly mention, because you mentioned the Brandenburg case, and let's just talk about it for a second, because it is a fascinating case. It takes place when John F. Kennedy was president. John F. Kennedy is trying to push what eventually would be the 64 Civil Rights Act. Imagine this scene, a bunch of Ku Klux Klan people, fully hooded, marching around a burning cross, which we know is a hate symbol, loaded rifles. Now, and they're being tape recorded on this. And one of them, in his wonderful grammar, says, let's go downtown and take revengeance upon somebody for what Kennedy's doing. They get prosecuted, and what the court says, and this is the famous case, it says speech crosses over into a true threat when, and this is the court's language, when somebody advocates imminent lawlessness, that's imminent. That's the test. And so here, if this were a criminal trial, did Trump's speech advocate imminent lawlessness? That's imminent. It's, again, we're right on the edge. Because let's say those people started marching towards the Capitol, and instead of marching towards the Capitol to burn down or do whatever they're going to do to the Capitol, one of them saw a restaurant and said, this is a good place for a cup of coffee. Let's go have a cup of coffee instead. A lot of things could happen in the process, and so the law here is again could be interpreted in a couple of ways to either hold Trump responsible or not, if it were a criminal trial.
what is Trump's future, political future now?
Okay. Political future, I think he's been damaged anyhow. I mean, the fact that he lost the election, I think, despite the fact that he doesn't think he did, is important to note. And even if not convicted, January 6th, I think, damaged him. With the exception of his most hardcore supporters, who are the evangelical Christians out there, most people say that what he said was wrong, maybe not worthy of conviction. I think his brand fades. His brand fades politically. We also know his business brand is hemorrhaging now too. So I don't think he's going to run again, even if he could, because he's going to be spending a lot of time fighting the Attorney General of the state of New York on tax evasion and a whole bunch of things. And he's got to prop up a business empire that's really hundreds of millions of dollars in debt.
You could impeach Trump, but how could you impeach 70 million people who believed in him and support him? And how much damage the Republican Party is now suffering?
Yeah. Well, they're clearly a party that's split, a party that can't decide if they want to be still the party of Donald Trump, but without Donald Trump, or if they want to be the party that's not with Donald Trump. And so the party's really split. You've got the Senator Hawleys and the Ted Cruz's going in one direction, and you've got the Mitt Romneys and that going in another direction. But what no one's really talking about here, and this is a point I think you were starting to raise, which I think is tremendously important. 70 million people did vote for him. They're in the same way that Hitler, Mussolini, and so forth, in some sense, they were the figureheads for movements, for conditions that created them. There are a host of conditions that created Trumpism and Trumpistas. It's the growing massive gap between rich and poor in America. It's racial resentment. It's a whole bunch of different things. And that's not going away, even if Trump goes away. And part of what needs to be addressed in this society is what? The xenophobia, the racism, the classism. And that's what's being, I think, totally missed by almost all the mainstream analysis. And you know this yourself. I mean, coming from Egypt, I mean, that a lot of what ails Egypt are some of the underlying problems of poverty, of some of the underlying issues of inequality that are really fostering the problems in your home country.
Well, thank you so much, David. I really appreciate you coming here
Sure.
under the duress of